Hi guys, welcome to my channel. How are y'all doing today? So here today on Abby the Witch, we are going to be talking all about the dark moon. We are going to be talking about dark moon magic as well as dark moon versus the new moon and what the dark moon really means to me and the difference between the two. Before I really jump into all of that, I did want to bring up the fact and discuss, and I can't help myself, I really do want to tap on this, that I have noticed some witches in the community thinking that working with the moon and her phases is very basic and 101 and silly even, which I agree it can be as basic as you want it to be, and it can be a great place to start as someone who is just starting out as an active witch. However, that doesn't make it any less powerful. And I really think that moon magic can be as advanced as you want it to be. It can be much more than just putting water out under the full moon, which still can be very powerful, and moon water is still extremely effective. I have some sitting right next to me. You can put water underneath the dark moon. You can put water underneath the halves, the quarters. I love working with the half moon. I mainly work with just the full and the dark moon, which the dark moon is going to be the main focus for today. So what is the dark moon to me? The dark moon to me is what a lot of witches call or refer to as the new moon, okay? The dark moon to me is when there is 0% or as close to 0% of illumination as possible radiating off of her. I work with the dark moon for one night when there is as much darkness as possible, when it's as close to 0% illumination as possible. Now, does that energy still ooze over and before the dark moon happens? Does that dark moon energy still kind of flow over? Yes, absolutely. However, I really work with the dark moon for that one night. This is versus the new moon, which to me, the new moon is right after all of this, when she is just a sliver in the sky. And I call the new moon just the waxing moon. I don't really work with the waxing moon that much. I really just use this series of phases to plan what I'm going to do underneath the full moon. Same with the waning moon right after the full moon. I use that series of phases to plan what I'm going to do for the dark moon. If I do anything, I don't always work under the moon phases, but sometimes I do. To me, the new moon is the new moon that comes out of the abyss that is the dark moon. And kind of stemming off of that, I'm going to get into talking about some body parts here. Might be a little bit of a trigger warning. However, I do not associate any of this with gender. You do not have to be someone who has a uterus, a vagina, a menstrual cycle to feel connected to work with the dark moon or any of the moon phases at all, okay? This is just how I view her, and this is how I feel connected to her personally. So to me, the moon phases, and I've heard a lot of witches tap on this, the moon phases to me is just a big old menstrual cycle. I view my menstrual cycle, I'm someone who has a menstrual cycle, and I view my menstrual cycle as something that's, yes, physical and something that happens to my body, but also very spiritual. And that's how I view it with the moon. It's something very spiritual. It represents something spiritual. So to me, the dark moon is the end of the bleeding period in the menstrual cycle. This is when she is getting rid of everything she does not need. She's shedding everything that is unneeded, okay? So I really associate banishment with the dark moon. I associate cleaning up your life. I associate death energy with the dark moon. And as witches, we know that death doesn't always mean physically dead. It means endings, right? It means the ending of something. And with the whole new beginnings thing, that's really more with the waxing moon or even the full moon. That's how I personally view it. Okay, I'm sorry you guys, I had to take that choker off. It was just driving me insane. I think it looks so cute and I love it, but I can't wear it anymore. It's driving me nuts. Okay, now that I have talked about what the dark moon means to me and what she is versus the new moon, I am going to start talking about magical workings that I do under the dark moon. Now, I will say, before I get into what I personally do, I want to say that I have been highly influenced, extremely influenced and inspired by this book right here, Of Blood and Bones. I have all kinds of notes. This book, okay, I don't even know how to put it into words. I was very drawn to the dark moon and working with the dark moon before I read this book, but Kate Fruhler, who wrote this book, she really illuminated that path for me. This book speaks to my soul. If you are a witch who works with death energy, if you are a witch who is interested in working with death energy or the dark moon or the dark moon, I would highly, highly, highly recommend this book. It's basically just become like a manual to me now. Now I won't say that like I take things necessarily verbatim out of here, but heavily inspired and influenced by, like, big time. So anyway, so the first thing I wanted to talk about that I do under the dark moon is taking a dark moon shower or bath. This is a very easy, simple way to do a magical working or to connect with the dark moon. I associate taking a dark moon shower or bath with getting rid of, washing away, cleansing myself, okay, of bad energy, of anything that you want to get rid of in your life, of maybe even evil eye that you feel is connected to you. I usually take a shower for the dark moon because I associate that more with cleansing, right? Of rinsing off everything that's unneeded or unwanted. And I really associate a spiritual bath with more like full moon. I'll take a full moon bath every once in a while. I haven't in a while, but I really associate taking a bath with manifesting and steeping in it like you're a tea bag and you're brewing something, you're creating something. That's really what I associate with a spiritual bath. You can bring in water safe crystals with you into the shower. You can bring in herbs with you into the shower. Anything that you associate with that banishment, that dark moon energy, that death energy, as long as it's safe in the water in case it gets wet, bring it in with you. Now, another thing I really like to do underneath the dark moon is divination, okay? You can do a tarot or oracle spread on things that you should get rid of in your life, habits you should break, really anything. I think that the dark moon is a powerful time to do divination, but really divination I associate with obviously any time you can do divination, but dark moon, full moon are both very powerful times for divination. Scrying during the dark moon, meditation, really utilizing black mirror scrying, black sphere scrying, eyelid scrying even, utilizing the darkness that is the dark moon, that energy is a great time for scrying into darkness, if that makes sense. I usually just do eyelid scrying, which is literally when you meditate and you scry onto the back of your eyelids and you look for messages, visions on the back of your eyelids. But you can use things like a black mirror, okay? I don't use this very often. I do have, not an obsidian sphere, a lot of witches do use obsidian spheres because obsidian is also associated with the dark moon. And you can really look into that obsidian sphere like you would look into the dark moon for messages, okay? Similar to how you would with the black mirror. Now, do I have an obsidian sphere? No, obsidian spheres are really expensive. But I do have, it's underneath my altar right now. I do have a sphere, I think it's just like black marble or something. I got it at a thrift shop for really cheap. But I do use that every once in a while underneath the dark moon to look into, to scry into, and look for messages as if it was the dark moon herself. Now, another thing I want to mention too is you can make dark moon water, okay? Exact same way you would do full moon water. Like I said in the beginning, you can put water underneath any of the phases of the moon. I add this to a bath. I've added this, you can even like, I just kind of thought of this and I really want to try this. I've never really actually tried this, but you could totally rub dark moon water on like the walls of your shower to take a dark moon shower. This way you can have that energy bottled up with you. You don't have to wait until the next dark moon, right? As long as it's safe to drink and you didn't put anything in it that is unsafe to drink, you could totally drink dark moon water too, as long as it was sealed safely outside. I have done this with moon water. I brewed it into a tea and you're literally drinking your own magic. I actually have this black skull jar that I use to put water in for my dark moon water. Also too, I don't know why I didn't write this down, but I have totally scryed into water using herbs before, or even just water in my black cauldron. That's another way you can look into something dark and black during the dark moon. Or if you already have dark moon water, there you go. You can pour it into your dark cauldron and do dark moon scrying. Do you have to have a black skull jar to make dark moon water? Obviously not, but I really think that this just like adds even more energy and intention into that water that I'm making. Now, it's exactly how you would do it with any other moon phase. I cleanse out my jar, I put fresh water in it, I put it underneath the dark moon. I envision that dark moon, the black rays of the moon, infusing my water with its magic. Now, I like to put it in a liminal space. Kate also talks about this in this book. Liminal spaces can really be associated with dark moon. It can really be associated with death energy. A liminal space is really like an in-between space. It's a void, kind of like the dark moon. Some examples of a liminal space might be the outskirts of a woods where it meets up to like a meadow or a field. A cornfield here in Indiana where that meets up to the woods, that space in between could be a liminal space. Some people associate hallways even as liminal spaces. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. I also associate the back of my house where it meets up to my back garden as a liminal space. And that's usually where I put my dark moon water overnight, as well as the next things I'm going to talk about, death oil and death incense. Now, death oil and death incense is another thing you can do. I associate dark moon again with death energy. You can use death oil and death incense for cord cutting, ending bad habits, or even hexing if you want to. You can rub this oil onto a candle that you associate with banishment. You can burn the incense when you're cutting cords. Use your imagination. This stuff can be very useful. Whenever I make an oil, I always use olive oil just because that's always what I have on hand. You can use whatever really oil you want, honestly. Olive oil is a great base. For death oil, I will add things that I associate with death energy or the dark moon. So dead bugs, dead debris like dead leaves, dead sticks, graveyard dirt even. And same with the incense, only there's no oil. Okay, so anything that you associate with death energy. Now, I don't usually add dead bugs to my incense because I don't want to burn dead bugs. But I have a death incense that I use that is just dead leaves, sticks, dead grass. And when I burn it, it just smells very, very earthy. Now, a lot of people will say, and she talks about this in the book too, but this is all over the internet. I've heard it from so many witches. Full moon or dark moon water to grab it before the sun comes up. That's not that big of a deal to me. I really only associate the sun with charging. So if anything, it's just charging the energy that is already in that water, or oil, or incense anyway. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. She also says in the book too that oh, your dark moon incense oil, any of your dark moon tools that you create, put them in a dark space. And like, yeah, I try to keep them away in a dark space, but like, I get them out, the sun touches them. I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't think it's a big deal. I'm not someone who does a lot of workings at night because I'm just not really like a late night person anymore. I am in bed by 10 o'clock. So, I do a lot of my workings during the day. My sun touches my dark moon death energy things all the time. Like, it doesn't bother me. It still works for me. Now, the last things I really wanted to talk about might be a little taboo. However, I'm going to talk about it nonetheless. And that is binding, cord cutting, and hexing. Okay. This is a great time to utilize that banishing death energy to really put a fucking end to things. Whether it be in a harmful or non-harmful way, the dark moon can really add that boost to your baneful magic, okay? Now, I don't really associate cord cutting and binding with baneful magic. Some witches do. Some witches call freezer spells cursing. I associate cursing and hexing with causing harm. Cord cutting and binding isn't causing harm. It's just stopping something. That's just how I view it. And I am totally not above hexing and cursing. There's a time and a place for it. I think that if someone fucks up and fucks you over and really hurts you or hurts a loved one, you're justified. I really truly think that. I will put a forewarning out there though. Please, please, please don't be that fucking witch that just goes around hexing and cursing. That shit is so annoying. That shit gets so old. I'm so tired of it. Everyone is. We're just the petty, jealous hexing and cursing. Anyway, I really encourage you to look inward before you hex and curse. I really encourage you to really reflect on things before you hex and curse. Again, there's nothing wrong with hexing and cursing. It can be justified. You can be that bitch's karma. I get it. I'm with you. But really, really think about it before you do it, okay? Because hexing and cursing, I say that because hexing and cursing can really fuck someone's life up. It can really fuck someone's life up, okay? So please use your brain, okay? Anyway, so that all being said, you guys, go out there, work with the dark moon. I really encourage you to just, if you haven't before, experiment with it. Make some death oil, make some incense, make some dark moon water, work in liminal spaces, work with death energy. It's really beneficial for me anyway. Like, it's been really useful. So anyway, guys, that is all I have to say for today. Until next time, I hope you stay very well, and don't forget to follow the snake. Thank you. Bye. Working with the moon and her phases is very rudimentary. I cannot fucking say that word, so I'm just gonna not say it because, Abby, you can't fucking say it, so don't fucking say it. Great start. Okay. So to me, the moon phases, and I have you